UX people love a plan. We love structure. We love clarity. But what happens when that really important stakeholder meeting or that meeting with the executive leadership team goes completely sideways? What happens when the workshop energy drops or when your beautifully crafted argument to justify your design decisions just doesn't land? In that moment, your frameworks don't matter. What matters is how you respond. So if you've ever felt thrown off when things don't go according to plan, stick around because today we're unpacking how yes and strategic play can help you stay flexible, collaborative, and influential when things get messy. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome. I am super stoked to have you. How often do you stare at a blank Figma canvas unsure where to start? This episode is brought to you by Mobbin, the ultimate UI and UX design inspiration library. Mobbin gives you instant access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI, screens, and user flows from apps you love, and content is added weekly so you never have to start from scratch again. Quickly find exactly what you need, search by app category, UI patterns, or even specific features. And my team and I use Mobbin daily at work to find useful patterns, and it helps my team work much more efficiently. And honestly, I can't imagine kicking off a new project without Mobbin. So you ready to level up your design process? Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Roddy, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and Zoe for all their support. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. So frameworks are useful, tools are useful, process is useful, but they're just scaffolding. They're just tools. None of it matters if you can't read the room, if you can't sense when the energy shifts and adjust in real time. And that's part of the job that nobody really teaches you at all unless you've taken an improv class. And that's why I'm so excited to have Nikki Anderson on the show today. Not only is she an incredible UX researcher, strategist, and all that stuff, content creator, but for a while now, she's been exploring how improv principles like yes and even a little structured play can help us respond rather than react. Nikki is a user research consultant and founder of Drop-In Research, where she helps product teams make faster, cleaner decisions through practical, business-aligned research. She partners with companies to build AI-enabled research systems, raise research maturity, and turn insights into decisions that actually move a roadmap forward. She leads widely used training programs and writes the User Research Strategist newsletter, read by thousands of UX researchers, even me. Known for transparency and actionable insights, she's shaping the future of research while chasing waves and geeking out over Pokemon. You and my kids would get along very well, by the way. Nikki, welcome to Beyond UX Design. Finally, we've been trying to have you on the show for a very long time now, and it finally got you here. Welcome to Beyond UX Design. I am so excited to have you on. How's it going?
Oh, Jeremy, thank you so much for having me on. And yes, been playing a podcast tag for a while now, and I'm just thrilled that I'm finally here. So thank you so much. I am doing so well. That bio made it sound like I actually do some cool stuff. So that's great.
Well,
Check box there. But yeah, all good. And just, thrilled to be here today and talk about some fun stuff instead of not fun stuff.
Not fun stuff. Well, that's the whole point of the show, is to be fun. If it's not fun, who wants to listen to that crap? All right. So, Nikki, I know I read your bio a little bit there, but you've been doing improv for a very long time. You've also been leading strategy and UX research, and obviously really successful consultant over in Old Jersey, not New Jersey, not to be confused with New Jersey. So tell me a little bit about your improv background, and ultimately, I would love to understand how you realized improv was such a huge thing for designers to understand.
It's actually quite funny because I got into improv around the same time that I got into, I'll say UX/UX research, because I was hired as a UX intern as my first job, which meant that I was doing prototypes until they were like, wow, you suck at this. And I was like, word, at least I can talk to people. Yeah, luckily I pivoted into full-on user research. But yeah, around that time is when I got into improv, because despite what everybody on the internet will say, I am super introverted. And I try and convince people of that all the time, but they don't trust me or believe me. But I got into improv because I was actually having a really hard time with being on the spot. So I was that kid who was like 8 years old where the teacher would call on me and I would freak out and I wouldn't be able to speak. All my thoughts would have just left the building. And I was like so embarrassed. I would actually tear up. When I was a kid, my
Oh, wow.
face would turn bright red as it does. And if I'm in those kinds of situations, I experience that same panic that I felt as a child. And that happened a lot in my first role. And so I decided of this whole thing of improv. I've always liked it. I've liked watching it. Whose line is it anyway?
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah.
Millennials. And so I really got into that mindset of maybe if I'm forced to think on the spot, fun, creative, playful way, I will do better in a more structured environment. So that's actually how I got into improv. And I found that it was super helpful in a whole lot of places in my life, like a whole lot of different situations, but particularly in the whole research facilitation, stakeholder management with user interviews where we're supposed to be saying yes and with a question mark rather than a statement afterwards. So it's hugely impacted my life and happy to go into anything and everything, including Pokemon.
Totally off topic, but my kids were arguing about how to pronounce Pokemon. One of them was calling it Pokemon, and the other was Pokemon, Poke, right? I have 8 and 10-year-old boys, and they were literally fighting, like wrestling around because one was calling it Pokemon and said it was stupid, and the other one said Pokemon and said they were stupid. So anyway, how do you pronounce it? Pokemon? How do you?
Okay.
Okay. More like, yeah. See, I was actually, when they asked me, and I was like, well, if you asked me, it's a Japanese word. Pokemon is probably like more, you got to say it like Pokemon, like a samurai. Was kind of how I was, anyway. All right. So that's settled. Next, moving on to improv. So when we think about UX professionals, you mentioned a couple of scenarios. For people who are not familiar with improv, I'd love to hear first, before we talk about how improv can be beneficial, what are some places where you see people, UX professionals, researchers, designers, whatever, maybe not flailing might be a better way to say it, flailing and sort of missing the mark because they might not be familiar with those concepts?
Absolutely. And I will talk about the places where I flailed or have seen other people flailing because I really love to highlight all the ways that I have really tanked meetings so that people feel a little bit less alone. You are not alone if you are flailing. I have flailed once too, and I still do sometimes. But with professionals in the UX space, we often don't get a chance to say, we actually want to say, or to respond to stakeholders in the way that we want to respond to. There are times where we will go to a meeting, not because we think that it's actually useful, but because it's the only place where we might be able to, for once, say the thing that we've been thinking for the past 3 months, right? And actually share something and try and move something. And so I think that a place that I see people flail and where I have and now I can't say the word flail because now that word is weird to me. So
Flail. Yeah.
Flail.
Don't say it too many times in a row.
So the place that I see people struggling with this, what we do is we present our work and we hope that people will listen to us. We have this one meeting where we're like, okay, this is the end all be all. If people don't listen to this, my job's gone. If people don't care about this, if people don't understand, it's all riding on this 1 hour meeting where we're like have slides prepared and we're presenting our work to people. Sometimes that can come in different forms, a weekly sprint meeting too. There are lots of different areas that we might be presenting our work. And something that people struggle with is presented my work and therefore I'm done. And so I see a lot of people struggling that activation and that fun, creative brainstorming, ideation, like let's bring this to life that we don't seem to go to as much anymore as I've seen in the past. Before, when I was user researcher, like I want to say 6-7 years ago, workshops, like ideation workshops, design sprints, like those things came as a package almost of user research and of like our process. It wasn't like, here's my report, go do with it what you can figure out. It was, here's a workshop where we activate the findings. Here's how we have creative fun in these spaces that we're able to experiment, go a little bit wild and have these conversations in a safe environment. And I think that is where I see people struggling is like, we're like rushing to try to get our thoughts and work valued to the point where then everything just feels a bit like checkboxy and rushed, I don't know, anxiety ridden rather than inspiring that creativity and action forward. I just like, bleh. So I'm going to stop there.
No, it's perfect. Because that's the thing. I think when people think about improv, this is the next thing I was going to ask you. And I love how you just called out all the other things like the games and the kind of thinking on your feet, the spontaneity, the sort of just pivoting really quick and in the moment. But I've had conversations with people and they specifically call out improv as like something they don't like because they hate the concept of yes and. And their big beef with it was the yes, I think. And they hear yes, and the first thing they think of is like UXers doing whatever the product manager says or product driven or whatever. And that whole yes bit really throws them off. But I love the idea though of all the other things that go along with improv beyond even just the yes and, which I think for collaboration is really important, not shooting people's ideas down. The first response is no, but I love the idea of, like you mentioned, whose line is it anyway? All the games they play and the silly little things. And there's just, I don't know. I don't know if you have any other thing to add to that, but I just love the idea though of treating collaboration in a more fun way and like a more collaborative way as opposed to traditionally PMs and UXers constantly butting heads and fighting all the time and things like that. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but I just love that you call that out.
Writing this down because I don't want to forget what you just said. And now that I've said it, it's gone.
I don't even know what I said. What did I say?
The first thing about the skepticism behind yes and, I totally get that because we don't want to be sitting there saying, product manager, great idea. And let's add your other idea that you had in the shower the other day, which you said would be the greatest feature ever. And yes, let's add AI on top of that. That's not really the yes and literally anything else should be used in like a structured kind of manner where everybody understands the purpose of it. And that's what you said, is to not shoot down people's ideas. But something that I have found is as humans, we're really good, and I've noticed this through so many meetings, at saying what we don't want or saying what something shouldn't be, right? So we're very good at no but, no but. We're really good at trying to almost constrain it. And it's very rarely that like we actually look at that other side of yes and let's go wild with this. It doesn't mean like just because you say yes and doesn't mean that you're committing to building like a whole product off the back of your B2C organization. That's not what it is. It's more of just let's explore and let's really be open to all of the possibilities. And there's like different phases of these meetings. That doesn't mean that we're choosing them. It doesn't mean that we are committing to them, right? It just means let's collect these ideas and creative. And I think that something that you had said is like collaboration has become so like, you know, and trust me, I yell at my product managers and I'm like a really short person. This hair is making me look taller than I actually am. I'm a really short person. Watch me yell at a 6'3" like product manager. But I've done that. And like, I understand that a lot of people have that. But like when we bring fun and creativity to an organization, it actually sparks innovation and positive ideas. And that yes and doesn't become a really stressed out who's been trying so hard to come up with an idea that will satisfy leadership. It actually turns into what are we trying to build and what are we trying to do and how can we do that the most innovative way possible.
So you mentioned a couple of times already structured play and the idea of play, and something that I would love to talk about too, because I think there's a lot of people who probably have not really experienced that at work. I've been part of this with training sessions and things like that, where we have immersive games and things like that kind of teach us a strategy or teach us leadership skills or something like that. But I'm curious, as it relates to improv, or maybe it's even completely separate, but how do you see this idea of structured play being something that we as team members can help us maybe collaborate more or influence like how we make decisions?
We live in a world that is very playful right now.
In corporate America, yeah, right.
I would say corporate anywhere, because over here in the UK,
you're not even in America, yeah, right, yeah. Corporate,
it's a corporate
UK.
Europe. Pretty much everywhere just feels, I think it's because of this like efficiency culture that we're generating, like around like AI. Let's go faster. And everything is just feeling so just like checkbox. Let's get it done. Let's rush through it. And I think that we are just as humans missing a lot of that, like, where's the space to actually think? We're in back-to-back meetings. We're in between meetings, or even during meetings, we're responding to Slack messages. We're responding to emails. We are trying like to do 9,000 things at once. And I think that structured play gives us a space to think in a really fun way that brings us back to childhood, which we're more open, we're more creative, we're more willing to go to certain places. We're more willing to be like kind and empathetic. We're more willing to ask questions rather than accusing people or getting mad. We respond more with curiosity than with like blame or anxiety. And so I think that's can really open up not just let's create this new product, but let's rethink how we talk to each other. Let's rethink our culture. Let's rethink how we run meetings. And there are a lot of ways that you can incorporate that. If you're like companies like we don't work at Lego or we don't work at a place like this, you can do it in the smallest way all the way to an entire workshop. You need to think through what's most realistic for your organization, but I promise you, you can put it into pretty much any need.
Let's talk about that because I don't we can't turn this into a workshop necessarily, but
Sure.
I would love to get your thoughts there. Most of us, and I think actually, let me go back because I think this is my thought. Tell me what you think here, but I feel like a lot of the challenges that we run into with product managers, with the rest of the team, stem from ambiguity, uncertainty, mismatched expectations, and things like that. And I think your thesis here is that improv can teach you how to maybe not overcome them, but how to deal with them on the fly, perhaps. So talk to me a little bit about how you approach some of these. I don't know if you can use a real example, maybe make up an example where, you're in a meeting and you're starting to fight with a PM. How do you take some of those improv techniques, or maybe you could teach us, maybe we could try something. Maybe we could do a game or something if you want to try that live or whatever. This is not live because it's recorded. But how, do you want to try that? I don't know how do you approach it? Like, how do you take those things that you've learned in improv and start to use some of those things at work?
Yeah. So let's say that we're in a meeting and you have a point of view.
I'm used to it.
But let's say that research has told us something, right? Let's say that research has told us, here we go. This really pisses people off. This feature that we tested, kind of like more of a nice to have. As a stakeholder, what would be something that you might be upset about, like a conflict? If I were to be like, hello, Jeremy, the product manager, I did test this feature. People weren't able to use it.
So what are you asking? So how would I approach that?
If you were a stakeholder, if you wanted to
a stakeholder.
Chaos.
You want me, because I'm the bad guy here. That's right.
Some chaos.
I would blame someone probably. I would say it was your fault. You didn't design it right or something like that.
Sure. Yeah. Is
that what you're looking for? Okay.
Yeah.
So for everybody who's listening, I see what you're doing. We're setting up like the sort of improv game where there's a scenario and now Nikki is going to react to it. Okay, got it. Okay, so I'm the bad guy and I'm blaming you as a designer. Because the researchers aren't usually. So you're the designer. You did a bad job. You didn't do your due diligence, or you didn't check stuff out, and you did a very poor job designing this thing. It's all your fault.
Great. Bye. I quit.
See ya. Yeah. Fuck you. I'm out.
Yeah. Okay. I would agree because I'm shit at design. So I'd be like, yeah, you shouldn't have hired me for this. But okay, so I'm the designer now. And you as a product manager we've just done user research on this feature. And you as a product manager have blamed the failure of the feature. As a human, not designer, UX, who cares? That immediately makes me want to punch you in the face. And it also makes me go on the defensive. And whenever we are on the defensive, we can't think. It's very difficult for us to think. So if somebody in improv were to come up to me and say, you stupid, I'm trying very hard to be appropriate.
You don't have to be appropriate in the show, by the way.
You're so stupid. You spent all of our money. If somebody's coming up to me in that way in improv, I have to say, yeah, I'm really stupid. I spent all of our money and we no longer have a house because I set it on fire, right? I need to go with the flow. And if I were blamed for something, which happens plenty of time, but let's go back to this, it's all your fault. Instead of the natural reaction, I want to punch this person in the face. I'm scared of getting fired. I'm scared of all of these different bad things happening. It's not fair, blah, 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 blah. That I would actually invite you to go more into that like mindset of this is that person's reality. That probably isn't going to work out. So instead it's okay. I acknowledge that's how you feel. That's a yes of you can mirror that back. You feel like I've caused this problem because of the designs and What can we do about that? Or why is it that you feel that way? Or ask a question rather than trying to argue, because like I can promise you, I could give you 30 minutes. I could give you an hour. I could give you 4 hours. I could give you 8 hours. I could give you an entire week. You're probably not going to person's mind. So why are you sitting there for the 5 minutes that this is coming up in a meeting and arguing against somebody? It's not going to work. But what you can do is try to understand them and try to go with this. I'm not saying that you accept the responsibility. I'm saying that you like circle back and say, hey, why do you feel that way? What about this situation made you feel that way? Or what about this situation could have changed to make you not feel that way? Again, I'm not telling everybody to say, yeah, product manager or whomever, you're right, Jeremy, I messed up everything. I'm telling you to investigate.
I've been in situations, not where someone like blamed me for something like this. I was probably being a little bit dramatic, but I have absolutely been in situations where they called out the design wasn't good. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. It failed. And I had a meeting like 2 weeks ago where an executive literally said, this is not your best work. I'm like, all right, great. I didn't know what else to say. I was just like, okay. So yeah, but to your point, fighting with them and being like, I disagree. This is my best work, blah, blah, blah. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. Like it doesn't change people's mind. And I see so many times UX designers going and doing those kinds of things and fighting with people. And there's just so much tension already. Just like to your point, right? Fight or flight, they're fight or flight, we're fight or flight. And we're just like butting heads and then our temperatures ramp up and everything else. And then what happens at the end? Nothing. Just to your point, right? You could have 30 minutes, an hour a week and like, there's no different outcome. Now everybody's just mad at each other and you want to quit your job or they want to fire you, especially if it's like a boss or something. So anyway, really good example. What about something when we're dealing with other creatives, right? So we talk about product managers, we've got that kind of butting heads stereotype, but with designers too, this is something I would love to get your thoughts on as it relates to improv design critiques. Because I feel like this is something where I think the yes and the design suggestions or critiquing a design specifically, other designers who are also designers, obviously, that have that knowledge. It's not a product manager who just had an idea in the shower. Talk to me a little bit about how improv can help with collaboration as it relates to like other designers within a design critique.
Yeah. So I actually to help facilitate design critiques. And I also ran research critiques, like where you would put up your research plan and get critiqued on it. So I stopped calling them critiques. That's the first thing that you can do, maybe, because critique tends to have a negative connotation. And we want to try in these types of situations to take out all negative connotations. So when you're going into something like a design review, a research review, a design review, go on dictionary.com, find some synonyms for critique that land a little bit better. But the first thing is you could change the name. And it's, yeah, great. We changed the name, but we all know why we're here. And that's to mess up somebody's design. But what I would do is understand what the point is. What is the intention behind it? And reset that intention every single time. Why are we here? What are we here for? What is the point? And how are we going to go about doing this? And so I would highly recommend that before you start any sort of critique or review or any sort of cadence that you have this regularly, sit down with the team and talk through how you want to approach it. I'm so sorry because all I do is talk about workshops, and brainstorming sessions, but have a session about how that should go. Get very clear on how are we going to do this in a way that is empathetic for the person who is presenting their design and getting feedback, and for the people who are giving the feedback, because it can be just as scary presenting a design as it can be giving feedback on somebody's design if you know that they're going to freak out. So I would get really clear with your methodology within your given team and what people feel comfortable with. And then at the start, say, as a reminder, these are like the playing rules, right? I call them sometimes the playground rules. No hitting, no fighting, no screaming. That's kind of like for kids, no biting. And then we go through, remember that this is supposed to be a safe space in which you can get feedback, not criticism, feedback on your designs. Remember to speak with good intention. And then I would say that the thing that I started all of my critique-based sessions with is getting people to laugh. So we would always do an exercise at the beginning of our critiques. You can do draw a duck, where you have to draw a duck. And then you have to name the duck. And then you have to come up with a fun fact for your duck. You can draw your neighbor. And you can do this online too. You can draw a portrait of somebody in the group, and that can always change. And then you share the portrait, right? You can do like scribbles, animal scribbles, where you scribble something and then you have to turn it into an animal. Start with a laughing kind of exercise so that everybody's like, let's chill out. This is about good, fun things. And then try and incorporate that into the design critique. So when people are giving criticism, it's like, how can you do that in a playful way? Or how can you do that in a way that feels good? We don't want to be like, oh my God, your design's great if it's absolute shit. How do we not say that's absolute garbage? Or like, even that's not your best work. I would have clapped back and said, that's not your best comment. I clap back way too much, so don't do what I do. But brainstorm with your team. Each person needs to tell you how they like to receive feedback and how they like to give feedback. And then you can understand each person's specificities. Those should be shared and available to your team so that when you are giving feedback to Amy, you know that she likes to take feedback in a certain way and you can say it in that certain way, right? It's all about this combination of bringing fun and lightheartedness into the situation and the people that you are talking to, communicating with, and understanding their needs and understanding your needs and finding that overlap.
My team, I don't know if you know Jeremy Bird from LinkedIn. You're familiar with him? We work together. So he's one of the design managers where I work. And he came up with this template for critiques that I really love. It's the Fig Jam board that you paste your designs into. And it's got the rules and different levels. It's like way to set context and like a checklist. Did you ask this? Did you ask this? Whatever. Or did you specify this? So there's always those ground rules before you start. And I really love that. And it makes, I think, design critique a whole lot more productive when people aren't just like, well, I don't like blue. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't like blue. That's not the point. Designers, we should know that, especially senior level ICs, we should know that. But I still think a lot of designers like miss the point of that. And then they just give you gut reaction feedback of things they like or don't like versus understanding the context and delivering it there, which tying that back to improv, the thing that I think where this ties back to, you tell me if you think I'm wrong, but when you watch an improv show, it looks like almost chaos sometimes.
Yeah.
But underneath, there are ground rules.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned yes and before. You are not supposed to be like, no, I don't, that's stupid. I'm not doing that breaks the rules and then the whole thing falls apart. There's those underlying rules, even though at the surface, it seems like it might be a complete mess. Everyone underneath is still understand and working within the same context and the same understanding of how this thing should happen. Yep. And it's not just yes and all. I mean, there's a ton of different improv games and you follow the rules and there's the unspoken rules, but I love calling out the rules beforehand for people who forget that there should be rules to design critiques or design reviews or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
It was not really a question. Sort of an observation. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I love that comparison between improv and design reviews.
In quite a few of my improv groups, whenever anybody new came into the group, we actually sat down and did an updated profile for that person and reviewed everybody else's profile, because one improv group in particular, you could ask for, don't ask me or don't talk to me about the other topic. So we had profiles where people are like, I can't engage in this topic. So the problem with improv, you can structure it to a certain degree, but it's a lot of audience. So if you engage the audience in something and ask them to give you an animal, give you a topic, give you something, and they give back something that someone is very uncomfortable with, you know that as an underlying factor, you are not going to engage that person. People will come on and off stage quite a lot in improv. That person will usually go away and you know not to pull them out. And I think that's there. As much chaos as it looks like, there are underlying things that we think about in ways that we work. And we're very aware of like when an audiences shift and like a topic is over, do something different suddenly to re-engage the audience. So I think that there are a lot of like underlying rules in every human interaction that sometimes we can forget about. And it's always important, at least for me, like as a facilitator, to like remind people that we're like, if you yell at poor Jake over there and tell him that blue's the dumbest color that he could have ever picked, what are we doing?
The next thing I want to talk about a little bit is the idea of improv helping us deal with unexpected twists, turns, pivots, things like that. So there's always the unexpected twists in a meeting. There's always in the moment, how do you react? But then we talk about the UX process. So that it takes weeks or months or sometimes quarters or sometimes a year. Those things can change and morph over time. And we're often like, well, that's not the plan. It's not what we decided. How does improv help you in this more long form, I don't know, you got like long form comedy, improv skits and things like that. But how do you take improv and mold it for those overall high level things when stuff doesn't go the way that we expect to and it doesn't follow a quote unquote UX process?
So whenever there are like those like twists and turns or like something's not following a process, there's always a reason for that. And guess what? We can ask questions to understand that reason rather than just assuming the reason or getting pissed off. In improv, you're not really supposed to ask questions that much, which I found was super hard for me. That was like one of the things in improv where I was like, but I just want to respond with a question.
Wait, you came in, you burned, you did whatever. You're like, why? What?
Yeah,
What?
why did I do
Right.
that? That was very difficult for me to stop doing. So it's like mixing two sides of improv and just general coming at it with a sense of curiosity. So my automatic response to something going awry, something not following a process, yes, it is not no. Yes means that I am accepting the reality of the situation. And I don't think that we accept realities of situations very well. We like struggle again. We're like, no, this shouldn't be happening. And I'm like, well, buckle up. It is. First, accept. So it's the yes and asking questions. So whenever anything goes awry, I try to understand, why is it going poorly? What has happened to lead us to this situation? And I actually am very fortunate to have spent my life seemingly asking questions so that I can like then dig into that. So I can say, yes, this is the reality. And why is it happening, and investigate. And it's so funny because as the UX professionals, we tell our stakeholders this all the time. Way for you to fix this pain point for a user is to understand the pain point and ask questions about it. And then that's the only way that we can solutionize. But like, then we're like, well, why is this process that's supposed to be this way isn't going the way it is? Why? Like, we have to fix it. Let's fix it. Let's fix the problem. Let's fix this, rather than saying, oh, wait, why is it actually happening that way? And I always say, I'm so sorry, but understand the true underlying problem. It's like when people come to me and they're like, oh, do you like this tool for repositories? Or which tool should I use? Or what should my company needs this. I need to procure something or I need to solve it. All we're going to do is slap Band-Aids on something that probably needs surgery. And so I always say, like, within that improv mindset and that kind of like open mindset, it's yes, this is the reality, and why and how did we get here? Then what's next?
It's just, especially something I like to talk about because the majority of the show audience is not managers. They're not leaders. They're usually individual contributors. And they often have very little direct authority to change anything. And so if that's the case, accepting that reality and being just pragmatic and saying like, this isn't ideal. This is not perfect, but I could fight this and bang my head against the wall and still make zero progress. Or I could just look at this as a job and be like, okay, I'm getting paid. This is something I see so often unrelated to improv. But we just, as designers, UX professionals, we have this empathy and we feel so strongly and we're so passionate about our jobs. And when things don't go the way we want, we feel personally affronted and we feel it's like you're doing this to me. Why are you doing this to me? And or you're doing this to the users. And how dare you? And at the end of the day, though, this is just a job. It's a freaking job. We're here to get paid. And I love the idea of just accepting that and being like, okay, what can we do now with what we've got? And I love that idea. And again, as individual contributors, how can we really expect to change the higher level plan if like an executive or something decided you're going to work on this quarter? Good luck. Good luck unless you have some special skill I don't have. But anyway.
What, erasing somebody's memory and rewriting it, right?
Sure.
That would be the only skill that I would know. And I totally agree with you. One of my most popular workshops that I run with teams where we understand what can the team actually control and what can the team not control. And I think that we do this because it's almost easier to be like, I'm hyper focused on this thing that I have absolutely no control over. That's easier to complain about than actually doing something that you can control. And so as an individual contributor, I would sit down and if you're having a hard time, literally list out into 2 separate columns. What can I control in this situation? What can I not control? Focus on the things that you can control. So if you are told you have to do this dumb project, yes, you have to do it. You have to, unless you want to go find another job or quit or become an interior designer or skydiver or whatever you want to do, right? You have to do that job. Then say, okay, for the things that I control, take out the best exercise in the books of how might we, and take those things that you can control. And for each one, say, how might we or how might I, it's okay to do it solo, how might I do the best job doing this? How might I do a literal how might we statements on the things that you can control in terms of making them the best that they can possibly be, right? How might I change my attitude about this stupid stakeholder? Try and understand them a little bit more. And the fact that everybody in the world is probably at their maximum capacity for stress, just like I am. So how might I actually make that person's life a little bit easier? Because I guarantee the second you start making people's lives easier is when people start valuing you.
You mentioned something when we talked in our pre-interview prep, which I don't even really remember the conversation, to be honest. It was so long ago, but I did write this note down. And as I was creating the guide, something that's kind of struck me, I want to dig into this, is a little bit about the idea of creativity needs structure, not always just freedom. Thinking about improv, again, going back, there's rules. It's not just people up on stage running around doing their own thing. There's order to the chaos. There's some structure there. And I want to talk a little bit about that idea, pulling improv in and thinking about creativity needing a structure and not just freedom. It reminds me of this idea of slowing down to go fast. We're not just going to jump in and start designing something right now. We're going to take a minute. We're going to think about some stuff. And I'm curious, what has improv taught you about maybe slowing down to go fast as it relates to our overall design process?
Yeah. So if you just like rush into things head first without a lot of thought or intention, it will fizzle out really quickly. If we were to get up on stage, absolutely no structure, let's say we had no marketing for our event, we had no like true theme for our event, and therefore the audience is like a bunch of grandmas who have certain political views, right? Or dogs who can't understand English or words. And then we get up, we have no idea who's coming out when. We have no idea of anybody's strengths or weaknesses. We have no idea how long the session's going to be. We have no idea what we're trying to accomplish. It's going to be an absolute disaster. Right? And design and UX and product is the same exact way. So we talk about this whole thing of fail fast, learn fast, experiment, fail, iterate, like all those like fun bumper stickers. Maybe some people do. So huge kudos to you if you have like a fail fast, learn fast. Hopefully not a driving.
A favorite mug.
Maybe more of a mug vibe than anything. The whole point of failing fast and like slowing down to do things faster or fail fast, learn fast is that there's structure behind it. Because if we just went out into the world and we were like, I want to learn quickly about whether people might like this product, let's talk to everyone. I hate to tell you, not everybody's going to love your product. You're going to learn a whole lot of nothing really, really quickly. So there has to be like some sort of like loose structure to these things. And that is actually how you get to things faster. Because if you invite 5 people to a meeting and say, what should we do next? And there's no structure behind it, you're going to be talking about the next offsite retreat that you guys all need to plan next July. And also Sally from tech hasn't reached out to me. And then, I forgot that HR said that we need to onboard all of these new people soon. And are they going to have laptops that work? Oh, wait, can they come to the retreat in July? It's a mess. So you need that structure. And that's where the structured creativity really helps, of like having an agenda and having set time. Every single activity that you have planned for your meeting should have an intention. And so I think that if you don't have that structure, you're not going to like actually get anywhere. You're going to end the meeting because you ran out of time and there's no outcome that's going to come from it.
Yeah, it's funny because I just think a lot of people who have maybe never been to or never taken an improv class before, or been part of an improv troupe or something like that, they go to an improv show and they just think, oh, it's a bunch of funny people getting on stage saying funny things. And it's interesting because if you think about empathy for our users or empathy for our people, our teammates, there's like an iceberg effect, right? There's all kinds of things at the bottom that you don't see, and you just see the thing at the top. And I think it's very true for design. Yeah. When a stakeholder, product manager, whoever sees the finished prototype, that's what they see, but they don't see all the things that happened underneath the surface. And so there's another analogy there where you see the thing at the top and it just looks entertaining and that's great, but you don't see, just like to your point about understanding the people in the team or the people in your troupe. How do they want to interact? And I think the same is true for design, where people see that design, they see the prototype, the Figma file, whatever it is, and they just assume whatever. I used to have engineers that would joke about us playing with crayons all day and things like that. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
they were joking, but like, it says that they don't really understand what happens underneath the surface. And that structure, I feel like, is something that we need to think about. I've worked in enterprise for a long time. Now my job is very much like commercial, and it's got to move fast. Stockholders and stakeholders, people like that, they want to see releases every other week and every sprint, blah, blah, blah. So it's like just fast, 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 fast. And when you just move fast without a clear direction, without a clear place to go, without a clear vision or strategy, it just like you said, it fizzles out very quickly. And you're just like, what are we doing? What are we building? And so all that stuff that happens in the background, you got to take the time. I love that. I just love that. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I love how we're tying this back. And I feel like it's something, if you haven't taken an improv class, for the love of God, go take one. Just do it. Just do it. It's definitely something I want everybody to do. All right. So we've had you for a while. According to my calculations here, 53 minutes or so. I've got some questions I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. But before we get into that, any closing thoughts you want to leave with everybody out there?
Take an improv class. My number one thing. If improv isn't your thing, go to one anyways. As an introvert, I made it. I performed in front of, I think my biggest show was 2,000 people.
Oh, wow. That is big for an improv show. Damn, impressive.
Yeah. So like, I just recommend giving it a try because there's a lot of things that you can get from it. Actually, quite hilarious people. So one, that, and two, nothing, relatively speaking, is an emergency. Even if people try and make it feel like one, it is not. So it's okay to slow down a little bit and take a second and just try to have a little bit of fun. We are creative after all. Bring that creativity in, mess around, figure things out, give yourself the space to think. Because that's why we got into UX. That is the beauty of what we actually do and can bring to the table that, quite frankly, AI cannot at all. So remember that creativity and just have a good time whenever and wherever you can and try and create those good times for other people too.
There's something to be said about great relationships at work. Yeah. And I say this all the time, but like, you can't build great software without great relationships, and having fun, enjoying other people's company is a great way to do that. And you can't build great relationships with people if the product managers hate working with you, because you're a stick in the mud, because you're always fighting with them, because you're always arguing with them. And not to say, again, that you need to like acquiesce and just do whatever they say. But if they don't respect you, you're not going to have a good relationship. It's such an important thing. And I feel like improv can help build just the confidence to get up and talk to people, get up in front of a room, get up and have a point of view and express it. And that storytelling thing, we always talk about storytelling being such an important thing. I think that's something you would learn. Something that you would learn taking improv classes and being a part of getting up on stage. And I don't know, there's something about this. All right. Yeah. Cool. All right. So, Nikki, I have got 5 questions I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First up, what is your favorite non-design book?
For fiction, Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary. Okay.
By Stephen King.
Yeah. It's classic.
Around there. Yeah. Don't read it if you're like sensitive.
How do you feel about the movie versus the book?
No,
read the book. Don't even watch.
Yeah,
Most Stephen King movies are weak a little bit. Like certainly not never as good as the.
They're so bad. No offense. If he's listening, I love you. Contact me.
I'm sure he's listening. He's a huge fan of the show. He writes me every day. So I have never read the book, but I watched The Shining obviously a long time ago, and I didn't realize this, but Jack Nicholson like completely changed that book. Like apparently his like character that he wanted to play was like totally different than the book. I've never read the book, but it's on my list. It's so many books on my list, but I've never read The Shining.
Oh, yeah. So that's the one movie that I'm not too mad about when it comes to that kind of adaptation. But the book is just phenomenal. So much more insight into his psyche that you don't get in the movie. And you also get more insight into more characters too.
I've heard that the made-for-TV movie version of The Shining was more in line with what like Stephen King wanted. And I've seen that and I'm like, Jack Nicholson's character is just so good, I think. And it's different from me. I don't know. Anyway, I can't compare the two, like the made for TV movie and the actual movie. Anyway, weird. Yeah. I don't know. I'm surprised Stephen King liked it. All right.
Yeah.
Going totally off track. Whatever. It's my show. I do what I want. All right. Next up, What is your favorite non-design podcast?
I'm a true crime. That's like most women in their late 30s are. Hey. I'm a huge fan of Crime Junkie. I would say that's like probably pretty far up there on my like podcast list.
I like Crime Junkie. I can't remember the host's name. What's her name?
I can't remember either. And I feel so bad because I can never remember that. Ashley Flowers.
I can't remember. Ashley Flowers. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there it is. But she's got a couple other podcasts that are also really good. I like her a lot. She's a host.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, what is your favorite meal?
Annie's macaroni and cheese, the white cheddar.
From the box.
Yeah.
Can you guys get that in the UK or is that like, no? So that's only when you come back to the States.
Yep. As a child, I ate an unhealthy amount of that, but I love it.
Well, it's organic and it's better than Kraft mac and cheese. So I guess that's good. Way less yellow, number 5. Is there a comparable brand in the UK or is it just not on their palate? Like they don't even want anything to do with box mac and cheese?
No, we have Kraft mac and cheese here, but like anyways, it wouldn't matter because the chemicals aren't allowed. So I can imagine that it would taste vastly different like everything else. But it's not as popular. Tinned things are a little bit more popular than like boxed things here.
You're way more regulations and stuff when it comes to processed foods.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. I don't know if you ever had the microwave Kraft mac and cheese.
Oh, for sure.
My kids love that stuff and it repulses me so much when I cook it and it gets like all jelly and then you mix the cheese in and it's so gross. I don't know. I don't even know what substance it's made of, but my kids love it and they eat it and I can't complain. Before I had kids, my wife and I were like, the parents like, my kids are only going to eat organic, homemade baby food. And then we started feeding kids. I'm like, fucking, what do you want?
No,
You're not going to eat that shit. You want this? You're going to eat that? You fucking whatever processed, mechanically separated chicken parts. You want that? You're going to eat it? All right. Stop crying. My kids actually, we're going so off topic. My kids, I was making a joke about McDonald's and I was making a joke about how I saw a documentary once about how chicken nuggets are made and I'll never eat them again.
Yeah.
And but the main ingredient was like mechanically separated chicken parts. So like now, anytime they have it, they think it's funny. Like, hey, look, Mom, I'm eating mechanically separated chicken parts. I'm like, oh, at least you guys know what you're eating. I guess it's at least you don't think this is like real chicken.
I'm not a parent, so I actually have no legs to stand on here. But what I always say is that stuff will be so ruined for them later in life when they understand what it properly is. So I'm like, allow a little bit of like experimentation here and there. I didn't know what was going into my food. And now I do. And it's sad. So allow them that happiness for the very short amount of time.
Hey, there you go. The human body is remarkably resistant. And it will fix a lot of things on its own as long as they stay alive. You know, that's the one thing you can't fix.
Yes.
You know, you could fix most other things, but if as long as you're alive, you didn't choke on the mechanically separated chicken parts and die, then I'm happy. At least you ate something and you got some protein in you.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. All right. Next up, what is your favorite vacation spot? You got any good spots over in Europe? You get to jet set all over the place over there.
Yeah. So I would say that I go skiing at a ski resort called Val Thorens in France. It's impossibly difficult to get to, but so worth the effort. One of the best ski resorts in the world. So I would say that is one of my favorite places on earth.
Is that the French Alps? Is that what that is?
I think they're actually the highest ski resort in the world, or at least in Europe.
Wow.
So it's guaranteed snow, which apparently now you need to actually think about.
I'm originally from New Orleans. The highest point in the city is actually at sea level and it is man-made. There's no snow. There's no mountains. You'd have to travel days to get out there. Skiing was never something that I did. I live in Cincinnati now, and there's a place called Perfect North, which is the fake snow. And it's, I don't know, skiing. They're skiing, but my big thing is the tubing because
so fun.
I love that. There's no skill involved. I just sit in a tube and I go down a hill and it's great.
Yeah.
Skiing scares me. Actually, this is really cool. One of the Olympic skiers for the U.S. trained at that place I'm talking about.
How
Perfect
cool.
North. He's an Olympic skier. He's 17. He's from Northern Kentucky, where I live. And he's from actually, I think, my city, Covington. And he trained at that place. So you don't have to have fancy ski resorts to learn to ski if that's what you want to do. But it is if you want to have a really nice vacation, I think. That's the important part.
It's quite nice. Quite nice.
It's quite nice. One day I'll do it. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Last question. What is your favorite design tool that's not Figma? Now, I normally ask designers this. If you're a researcher by trade, you might have a completely different answer. Or Figma might not even be on your radar. Favorite design tool?
Sticky notes.
Sticky notes. She loves sticky notes. I love it. I'm with you. I love a good sticky note. I'm always got them. I got my pen. I got my sticky notes. I'm always writing notes and everything down. I love it. It's a good tool.
Sticky notes / notepad, anything that I can actually write on, because that's the best way to be creative. And I would say if you were forcing me to choose an actual tool, I would say anything that transcribes conversations.
I love it. Yeah, it's getting a lot better now too.
Yeah, it's nice.
I don't know how we live even 5 years ago without AI transcription and stuff. Now I can go back. Like all my show, I have you were there because you did this, but interview prep for the show. And so I have my transcript. And before I had the transcripts and stuff, I used to have to go back and actually think about what we talked about.
Yeah.
And now I can plug it into Claude and be like, what did we talk about again? Tell me. Summarize it for me because I forgot.
Yeah.
Especially when it takes a long time to get from those conversations. Anyway, it's amazing. Transcription is the bomb. All right, Nikki, this has been an amazing conversation. I've had such a good time. Maybe one day, if you ever make it to Cincinnati, we'll find a local improv group and we can do some improv stuff together. That'd be a dang old hoot. But before we get out of here, why don't you give yourself a plug? Let everybody know where they can find you and all the stuff you're working on. Subscribe to your newsletter. Maybe even hire you to facilitate some of these workshops we've been talking about. Where can they find you? Give yourself a plug.
100%. Just find me on LinkedIn, Nikki Anderson. Very easy. I chat a lot on there. You'll either love it or hate it. It's kind of like Marmite. Marmite's not in the US. Look it up. Throw up. I hate it.
Actually, you can get Marmite at our local Kroger, believe it or not.
Oh,
they sell Marmite. There's an international. I don't know. There's an international aisle, and it's got a bunch of stuff from all over the world, and they have Marmite. I can get a jar of Marmite.
And then, why do people make fun of our food? And I'm like, because there's Marmite in the international section in America, and everybody's like, you need to stop.
So is Marmite British? Because I always pictured it as an Australian thing, although I guess Australia being a former colony.
So Australia is Vegemite.
Oh, Vegemite. That's what it is. So I've never had, then it's not Marmite, Vegemite. I got them confused. Sorry.
I don't know if they're the same. I once tried Marmite. I just swore off mites. I'm like, no mites for me. It's just not a thing.
Let's see. I'm Googling Vegemite, not the same, although they are similar, thick, dark brown, similar yeast extract spreads. But Vegemite is thicker, more intense, and slightly bitter, while Marmite is stickier, sweeter, and has a milder yeast-forward flavor.
What?
Yeah, I've had Vegemite, but I've not had Marmite. Okay.
When you are describing your product as yeast and forward flavored.
I think of beer, though. I think of beer. I don't know. I don't.
I think of fun forward is beer. Yeast forward flavor, our marketing person.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Guys. Right. Gosh. Anyways, please find me on LinkedIn. You could follow my Substack. Talking about?
Oh, yeah. You're following on LinkedIn. That's what we're done.
My Substack is User Research Strategist. I write about things on there. Yeah. And you can hire me to facilitate pretty much any session under the sun. Admin sessions, working sessions, workshops, training, all that fun stuff. I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours facilitating now. And that's my jam.
It's impressive.
Yeah. So please reach out to me if that is your vibe, and I will be happy to help.
Nikki, thank you so much for coming on. I've had a blast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Well, all right, y'all. That's it for Nikki and me for today. If this episode got you thinking about improv, and if it convinced you to take an improv class, I'd love to know how it went, especially if you were kind of on the fence about it. How'd it go? And if you did take one and it ended up helping you out with some tough conversations with stakeholders or PMs or other designers even, I would really love to know. So would Nikki. Let us know what you think on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. If this show's been helpful, the best way to support it is simple. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a quick review. It helps me way more than you could possibly imagine. And if you want to go a step further and help keep the show independent and ad-free, check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. You'll get early access to episodes and the full video archives for as little as $5 a month. Everything else, episodes, newsletter, show notes, lives at beyonduxdesign.com. And if your team is tired of reinventing the wheel every time a new project kicks off, Mobbin gives you access to over 600,000 beautifully designed UI screens and user flows, all searchable with AI. It's the kind of tool that makes the whole team faster. Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and see why more design teams are making it a company-wide staple in 2026. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all.